Okay, so with concepts and constructs and ideas and beliefs and putting them into practice and putting them into fruition, there comes in that space the potential for discourse as well as the potential for discussion as well as the potential for discord as well as the potential for order. In taking a introspective and a retrospective look at all the different beliefs and ideals that are thrown in our direction when we choose to look and seek answers in the external world. What all of them inevitably end up leading back to is the same fundamental answer. And that answer isn't necessarily always the same or put in the same words. It's more something you have to glance and look at and understand through your human mechanism. Your mind is a space in which all ideas and concepts and notions are orbiting your experience. It both projects onto the external world, just as light shining through the window behind me, as shadows casted in the absence of light, as objects like the curtains, like the window itself, like my glasses. All of these are a template of thought that is projected onto the external world. These descriptions that we give everything, it's a thought. It's a construct of the imagination, of the mind. It, you can call it whatever you want. We, as human beings, set up these agreed upon formalities and ideals and build what we refer to as reality out of these agreed upon ideals. And simultaneous to that, we try to inlay and lay and lock kind of formalities of concepts and templates and ideals, rigid structures that basically act as parameters for our behavior, our condition. There, as a result of this space in which ideas are being manifested, is a template, a plane in which these ideas are always at play and they're always either running off one another's energy or running into and combining off energy or entangling through energy or disrupting one another's energy. No different than how you see waves crashing around in the ocean. Different things cause different momentums and different wakes, basically. The spiritual war that many refer to going on, the root of that conflict is ignorance of self. The root of that conflict is the ignoring and the ignorance of one's own core of fundamental being. The fundamental principle of what we all are different aspects, different manifestations of consciousness, and we are simultaneously existing in a dual plane of reality. Not only is this a material world in an immaterial space, not only are there light and dark aspects, not only is everything kind of balanced in this juxtaposed morality that has such a stranglehold and a play on keeping everyone confined to a certain template of parameters and behaviors, but they are all fundamentally suffering and at the same time at a play of stalemate, in a sense. They cancel one another out. The root cause of the conflict is always going to be ignorance. I've tried to come up with a concept and a formality, and I gave up trying to rationalize and piece together why the world is the way it is. The world is a reflection of nature. It's not rooted or grounded in our morality and truth. The reality is we are just as much a part of nature as nature is a part of us. And our behaviors can't be described in concept, in thought, in morality, because that in itself is just a set of parameters which we are projecting onto the world. We expect those behaviors out of other people, not understanding that the parameters that we expect others to follow are projections of our own internal laws, our own internal beliefs, our own internal ideas. Not a lot of people will even go into questioning their own beliefs and ideals in a given lifetime. They will stick by the same parameters and confines of a given experience throughout their life. Knowing that, it is impossible to garner and gain control. You can persuade people. You can give people direction. You can give people motivation. You can even manipulate people. These are all possible in this world, but you will never have full and total control over anyone or anything happening in this world. It is all a dynamic flow of nature in play, in motion, the good and the bad, unfortunately. That is the reality. That's the huge breaking point to see. Nothing is worth controlling. Yet this species does nothing but try to control and contain and manipulate and dictate and govern and push for one person having a persuasion of the autonomy and free will of another human being, and it all stems from the ignorance of self. Not a conceptual self, not a persona, not an idea of who you are, not an identity. What you really are. The core essence of what you are. Consciousness, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it or refer to it as, you are a part of that. We all are a part of that. Even the things, this goes into like animism, old school, I don't know why I'm calling it old school. It's a very ancient belief that everything that exists in matter and form is energetically linked to spirit. It's just a temporary, finite experience that spirit is having in it as a given object or a given. Everything innately has an energy to it, and this is true in our modern physics. Humans are in conflict with themselves because they are arguing over the conceptual ideas of one another's boundaries and parameters and not being able to negotiate and see eye to eye, but we don't necessarily have to bicker and quarrel and argue over any of that if we knew that we were all living on the same plane and sphere of existence. We all share the same space. Yet there are people, due to the mechanisms of how our behavior works, that constantly and continuously attempt to dominate the space and move into a position where they try to impose their will on other beings. And this is just a part of the lower animal nature. This comes from ignoring aspects of ourselves. You cannot have the light without the shadow. You cannot have the dark without the light. Both of them are necessary. This material body is just as much a product of the environment and the nature and the fact that it is a material world, a biological world that feeds on itself in order to sustain itself. You have to look beyond the perspective of seeing storytelling through a human lens. The animals in this world, they're a part of the same natural biome that we are. They feed on each other. There's an ecosystem at play. There is a biological order. And it's what we don't see and what we don't understand that leaves that empty place that makes us subconsciously afraid. We don't understand that this life is finite. It is temporary. Everything that life and matter feeds upon, it doesn't destroy. It converts into another form of energy. It releases energy. It is only the seeming idea that things are separate or separated that creates the illusion that we are cut off and disconnected from everything. But the body exists in the very space that allows it to be on this plane of phenomenon. That space that is between everything, is between my fingers, between the airwaves of me talking in this given time to you watching this on the screen at another given time. It is all formality, it is all concept, it is all idea that separates what our understanding of who and what we are at the core, at the fundamental core of what we are is. We are this eternal space. We are this eternal consciousness, inhabiting a temporary finite form and having an experience, a play in matter in the material world. When we die, doesn't matter how those circumstances happen, we return to that energetic expression. We return back to a whole, like a drop leaving the ocean. We take a form and we take a temporary experience to have this subjective experience in this play of life. But we never actually leave the ocean. We just kind of pop up from the surface to see and experience and witness all the phenomenon happening in a given plane, which, by the way, this probably isn't the only thing happening. This is probably one of an infinite multiplicity of experiences. This one just happens to be what it is. And then, when we die, the drop returns to the ocean just like that. We are the entire ocean again, the entire sea of consciousness, the entire expansion taking place, the entire space holding everything right now as we speak. You, me, the planet, the stars, the galaxies, the nebulas, the universe. We are all that. We are all expressions and formalities of that, like notes in an orchestral composition. We are playing parts. We are playing tunes. We are like sound traveling through airwaves. We are energy traveling through matter, having an experience as these forms. Why? Because it's cool. It's fun. It's far out. Everything is happening on this world. This world is a dynamic, very, very meticulously balanced, even if it doesn't seem like it, meticulously balanced play of nature, having a expression of multiplicities at one given time, at one given circumstance, and it is always changing, it is always evolving, it is always moving in all kinds of different juxtaposed formalities, and those juxtapositions exist so that both polarities of a spectrum of formalities can take place, share a space, share every infinite potential between those two formalities, the light and the shadow, the high and the low, the good and the bad, the material and the immaterial. All of them are at play. This is a hyper dynamic, hyper realistic dream in matter that consciousness, formlessness, is having, is experiencing, is witnessing as both you and me. We're in conflict with our ideas and the blind spots that our individual ideas cannot fill, cannot perceive. We don't self-reflect, we don't introspect, we don't understand that our minds have a habit of rooting things in a lot of symbolism at times, or our minds can stay in a set of conditions and parameters in a box where we only ever take ourselves to be the character, the personality, the concept of self, your life, your lifetime. But your mind is fluid, it's dynamic. Let's do a little exercise. I want to show people something. Imagine in your mind an apple. Could you picture the apple? Was it just the word? Was it any of that? Doesn't matter if you successfully pictured or visualized the apple or not. You have a concept in your mind that was created when the word apple was uttered. You have an idea. You have a concept of it. Think of a location. Let's say a beach. Let's say a white sandy shore with the sun going down in the horizon. Your mind just created an entire experience. How detailed it is relatively up to you. Is it grounded in this reality? Is it in space? Can you feel the phenomenon around you? Can you feel the wind on your face? Can you smell the sea salt? Can you hear the waves? The level of detail is entirely determined by your ability to imagine. And it takes no effort. It requires no effort, yet people struggle. And that all depends on what formality and how rigid your thought processes are. Do you believe you're not creative? Do you not think yourself able to imagine these things? Well, you should investigate why you think that is. There might be a parameter or a concept that is holding you back from exploring that of yourself. This is something I want to show people. I, in my spare time, am an athlete, a wrestler, and a dancer. In my life, I had this very terrifying experience of thinking that I was under some form of malevolent force manipulating me away from being in control of my body. In reality, I had a lot of preconceived notions and beliefs and deep-seated ideals that existed in my subconscious mind that kept me from feeling comfortable about my body and who I am and how I express myself. So I had a kind of mental, metaphysical blockage in my mind, in my imagination, that kept me from feeling comfortable moving. So I went about half my life just being a regular NPC character. It wasn't until I started exploring my mind and my constructs and getting comfortable with who I was and my body and expressing and evoking things through my body, feeling emotions, that I began to discover and understand that the formality of my humanity is very fluid. It is not rigid. It is able and capable of doing all kinds of amazing and very fun, wacky things. The ability to move and the ability to express yourself and play in a formality where you are totally and very easily in a fluid control of your body actually happens when you're not trying to put control in it. You are moving with life rather than against it. I thought for a period of time that the beliefs and the notions that existed in my mind were who I was. Upon investigating and writing and doing introspection and a little bit of shadow work, I found that the ideas and the preconceived notions of who I was weren't even my ideas. They were things that other people told and taught me about myself that I believed to be me, to be this character that I had taken to heart, and as a resulting consequence of that, I lived half of my life in a very rigid, confining circumstance, like a box, like a prison cell. I was stuck in that prison cell, unable to break and unlock myself from thinking within the parameters and the confines of that box. It wasn't until I started to allow myself to decompress and be more fluid with life, more dynamic with life, to allow expressions and the ability to express and the ability to feel the whole flow of my humanity, not just physicality, not just the mental, not just the emotional, the spiritual as well, that I began to become more comfortable with myself and every dynamic part and portion of my being that allowed me to be this wacky, unique, amazingly incredible, introspective, and fluid person. And it's when I got comfortable with that, I started to get back into my talents and my abilities and all the things that actually brought me great joy. And you know what I realized? I dynamically move at an increased rate and capacity for creating opportunity, growth, and incredible circumstances through those talents, rather than attempting to rigidly confine myself to a given idea and a given expectation of what and who I am based on other people's opinions and assumptions. This world tries to keep you in a box. Well, you get it. You get the picture. This world tries to keep you from looking outside your own window, from forming your own perspectives, from being able to be at peace with yourself, to be centered in who you are, your expression, whoever and whatever and wherever that might be. All of us have this potential. All of us have this ability. All of us have this dynamic, flowing, and harmonious nature with reality. But we are born into a time period and a paradigm that puts emphasis on trying to rigidly and dogmatically control not only our thought processes, but our emotional states, our physical states, our spiritual practices, our ability to express, our ability to introspect, our ability to learn, and our ability to see that we are a lot more unique than meets the eye. Each and every individual on this planet has these abilities, has this potential, has all the capacity within them. And that is the key. It is within. Every bit of who you are, every bit of what you need, doesn't come from the external world. We emanate who we are from within into this outside world. It is backwards. The truth doesn't come from the external. The truth exists already from within, and it emanates out into the world. The world is a stage. You are a performer, a divine performer. I understand that we live in a world that is incredibly challenging, tests our patience, makes us feel insecure or insignificant, or like we are inadequate, or like we are not enough. We can't take everything that people make us believe to be true. In fact, a lot of what people say only comes and stems from a given perspective at a given time in a given place. They don't know all the answers and information. So we need to stop pretending that other people have the answers and the information for us. Because it takes going through our own experiences and unlocking who we truly are to really see that we already are the journey and the destination. Everything that we move out into the world and set out to do always inevitably leads back to the core fundamental principle of who and what we are. We're peace, we're love. Everything that we do, even the most destructive things, stem from a wounded, distorted notion or some deeper, unseen, ignored truth within the individual that they are running and hiding from. The real evil, the real malevolence that exists in this world is ignorance, or an ignoring. And what is it that we are all kind of fundamentally ignoring? Well, it's the core essence of who we are. We become rigid, we become dogmatic, we become conditioned